There's so many dumb calls in recruiting. We will have people apply, get rejected, and then apply 3 or 4 times a week for like 6 months. And they just call again and again. Or they call because they applied to a job ad that said you have to have, a driver's license and you have to have auto insurance. And they call and it's like, do you have a driver's license? No. Or you call them and you're like, do you live in this area? No, but I'm moving there in like 6 months. And it's like, okay, great. We will call you back in 6 months. But like today, that was a bad use of my time.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zengage. I am joined by Rachel Gartner. Rachel, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're kind of winging it on the new format because it would be weird if I ran through the same outline I typically do and you had to pretend like you'd never heard of the show and had never been on before and had to like invent your big mistake. Gee, my big mistake, what's that? So
I could just tell the same one as last time.
Yeah, I don't know that would go good.
Because I've never made any other mistakes. That was the only one.
One and done. You were like, I'm going to try this mistake thing out that I've heard other people talk
about. One time. Yeah, for sure.
Well, for the listeners out there, we're kind of reworking the format for when I have people come back on because there's smart people who can actually talk about like other stuff than the thing they talked about one time. And so if you like this kind of feel of the thing, let me know. If you don't like this kind of feel of the thing, I guess let me know, but like don't do it in a way that hurts my feelings. That'd be sad. But Rachel, for people who may be hearing you for the first time, if you are, it's cool, but like you kind of live under a rock a little bit. But introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rachel Gartner. I'm the founder and CEO of Carework. We do recruiting for home care agencies. We're kind of famous for caregiver recruiting. We also do staff recruiting. Really popular right now. People are having us hire a lot of salespeople. We're seeing that pick up a lot. I am also a military wife and a mom of 2, and I live in the tiniest, cutest little town in Georgia. I just this morning walked downtown to pay my water bill in person, in cash at town hall.
In cash is crazy.
Or check.
Oh, wow. Money order, Western Union.
Yeah, no.
That rocks. This is a tangent. We should cut this. This is going to be boring. Oh, I shouldn't do it. I'm going to do it. Where I used to live in Jackson, Tennessee, we had like a single place where we paid for everything. So like water and gas and electric and garbage and my internet was all on a single bill. It was awesome.
Wow.
I now live in Arkansas in a small town. I guess we could probably go pay our water bill in cash. You can't walk down there though. It's the highway. You get run over. But it's I have water, electric, and gas at 2 other providers. I have internet with AT&T. Thanks AT&T.
Yep.
And then I pay the garbage company directly. So that is a decrease in quality of life, but an increase in quality of life, maybe also a decrease in quality of life, is the OZ Trails Bike Park opens tomorrow, May 15th.
Nice.
And so it's got bike lifts. I'm going to ride up on the bike lift. I'm going to ride down the trail and probably at some point ride to the hospital a little. It'll be all right.
A little bit.
Okay. Rachel, we are here to talk about the state of recruiting in 2026. There's a lot of stuff. People are running the 2025 playbook and they're confused why they're not getting good results. What should people be paying attention to or maybe have noticed that would tell them that they're running the 2025 playbook and it's 2026 and the old playbook doesn't work?
A lot of things that don't work. But I think generally what we're seeing from people is kind of this mass confusion of like, I know I'm supposed to be using AI. I'm hearing I should be using AI. I don't really understand why, or the difference. And so that's one thing we're seeing is people, if they were early adopters, they're still using stuff that made sense at that time, but the options have gotten so much better in 2026 that people are now behind
Yeah.
again. I mean, it's crazy. Like we can do a 2026 playbook, but we could also do like a quarter 2, 2026, quarter 3, 2026.
People are going to listen to this in like July and they're going to be like, what are these people talking about? They're so far behind. It's going to change so rapidly.
It's going so fast. So yeah, there's a lot from 2025 that I would say is not working anymore. But I think what's really cool is what's happening in 2026 is actually if you're implementing tools correctly, it starts to feel a lot like pre-COVID recruiting, which everyone has talked about for years. I'm like, I just missed the days before COVID. If you implement AI and the right tools and the new like 2026 methods, it actually starts to feel like that. It's not like that on the market, but it feels like that in your agency. And so that's what's really cool is we're actually seeing by the correct implementation of technology, we're seeing people feel more like they did before COVID when it felt so much more connected.
I like this as like the framing for the thing because the solution is not you're having a hard time with recruiting. You can have just as hard of a time as you did before, but it'll work slightly better. Like you can optimize and get slightly better results. Instead, it is like you can get to, and again, the labor market's still crazy. It's tough out there. Yes. But with the right kinds of tools and technology, you can get back to what it felt like to recruit pre-COVID and bring that to bear on your business today. And many of your competitors are still going to be in the mud of the new world of recruiting. And you get to kind of run laps around them. So it seems nice. But talk to me about the stuff that people are still hanging on to that doesn't work today and what's the case, in 2026. Stuff with Indeed, they seem to be changing all the time, those sorts of things.
Oh boy, with Indeed. So big picture with Indeed, people are still trying to run free job postings and still trying to play games there that do not work anymore. People still want to either run free job ads or run set it and forget it job ads where one time we sat down and we wrote an ad and we just posted a bunch of times. That is not working. And speaking of things changing quickly, Indeed is changing things very, very quickly. So with free job ad postings, our longtime recommendation to agencies has been to run 3 to 4 free job postings at a time so that every week they could refresh one. Indeed has limited that down to 3 job ad postings. One of the technicalities there that we don't love is if you run a free job posting that gets flagged for any reasons, it will kill your visibility of that ad, but that still counts as one of your 3. So when you go to run free ads on Indeed, you cannot sit down and just dump a bunch of free ads. It's going to be 3. And if you frankly screw up one of those 3, too bad, so sad. That was one of your 3. So it is brutal.
Is there a way to see if your job ad has been flagged, or is that like kind of like a weird shadow ban thing?
You would think so.
You would? I would
sure think
so.
You would sure think so. Sometimes. So it depends. There's kind of multiple ways it can get flagged by Indeed. Sometimes it will straight up, you'll get a notification on Indeed that was like, you broke a rule. And that can be like, this is identical to another job ad posted too close together, or your title seems spammy or something like that. But sometimes it is a shadow ban and your visibility just drops. We've seen a lot of that on Indeed side recently. We've seen if you're using an ATS to post your job ads, but you're posting other job ads on Indeed, it kills the visibility for everything. I mean, it's just been brutal. So moral of the story, do not rely on free job ads. And if you are still out there thinking, well, we're spending $50 a month, we're spending $100 a month, frankly, that's just not competitive anymore. Indeed really is cracking down on that. So you're going to have to sponsor your job ads. And also, you have to stay in touch with Indeed. When they send you emails, read the emails and find out who your Indeed representative is and set up calls with them. They are always going to tell you to spend more money on Indeed. Take that or leave it. But they're also going to tell you things like, here's what's performing well in your market. Here's what I'm seeing in your ads. Here's why that ad got flagged and how to not repeat that. So you just really have to stay on top of your job ads even more in 2026 than you did in 2025 because they are pushing changes literally all the time.
Complicated channel, changing all the time.
And expensive.
This is an aside from the pod, Rachel, but you should do like a Loom video of how you guys use Indeed. And like, here's all the places to look in the back end. Because I think like we find ourselves all the time like teaching people how to use WellSky or Access Care.
Yeah.
Because the resources don't, like Indeed does not have good resources for how to use Indeed.
No.
You guys should
they don't teach you at all.
You should do it.
I like that.
What else is 2025 thinking, action that no longer is relevant in 2026?
2025, a lot of people were very reluctant to push out AI in any kind of way that would interface with their caregivers. And we heard a lot of like, I don't think the caregivers are going to like it. And in 2026, that's just not true. Like the world is moving so quickly that if you are afraid to push out AI still, you are just straight up losing money, losing time. And caregivers are not afraid of it. Caregivers don't have this like kind of feared reaction of like, is this AI? How dare you? What we're finding is caregivers, like most people, if the AI works and it works well and it helps them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, they don't care. We're not trying to use AI here to like replace humans. And I think people still have this 2025 mindset that like, if I bring the AI in, I am like disconnecting the human touch from my agency or something like that. And it's just not true. It actually is really helping us have more good conversations with caregivers, and the caregivers are more comfortable sometimes with it as well. So if you are still operating under the 2025, like, oh, I know AI is coming, I'm not sure, I'm a little hesitant. It's 2026, AI is not coming, it is here. And caregivers know that too. They are used to it. They're not living under a rock.
Yeah.
So that was 2025.
And there's a couple of like kind of follow alongs to that we were talking about, that because AI is here, because caregivers are adopting AI, because it's no longer the feeling of like, oh, these cheap people are implementing some dumb AI that I have to talk to, but instead is like, actually this provides like as good or better of an experience than a person did. What else are you seeing in terms of like the channels and like the way that recruiting is happening?
This one's going to be controversial, so file this under a home care hot take, but I think texting is out. What's been interesting is because AI has made it much more scalable to actually get on the phone with caregivers. Texting is out and calling is in. We're just finding that caregivers, yes, you can engage a lot of caregivers by text, but they are not committed to the process versus if you can get them on the phone. So texting for a while was the best way that we had to automate any kind of screening for caregiver applicants. And that was great. That has served a great purpose and a lot of people love it. I think that's awesome. I'm just telling you, we are seeing texting is not the best way anymore. It engages a lot of caregivers, but it's not getting the quality people who are like, I'm ready. If they're willing to pick up the phone, they're ready to work. I mean, that's always been our belief at Carework, is like the gold standard is to get them on the phone. Now with AI, you can do that in a way that's like infinitely scalable, which is crazy. The other thing here that people often overlook are literacy rates, which is something I try and always bring up with caregivers. I think so many people are not in touch with how real the literacy crisis in our country is as a whole. And then when you move into the caregiver population, of course that is true.
Sure.
And so a lot of things that we are using, whether that's texting and recruiting, whether that's your onboarding resources, if it is only delivered in written format, a lot of people will struggle to fully comprehend it. And so texting, it can be used. I still believe texting should only be used as a method to remind caregivers that you're going to be calling them or that they can call you. The best thing is to get a caregiver actually on the phone. So that's my hot take. Texting is out, calling is in.
And everybody knows there's a huge spam phone call problem, but there's also a huge spam text problem. I also get texts for like every single e-commerce brand is trying to get phone SMS opt-in so that they can send text. And so I think there's a really interesting like intimacy, I'm going to call it the intimacy gap in texting. That's going to be bad. But the idea comes through, which is I text with the people that I'm closest to. And I have brands text me, and I have like reminders and two-factor authentication codes text me. And I think like those are the preponderance of text interactions that I have. And then I think there's a big gap in between where like I'm texting to coordinate conversations, but like I'm not small talking with people I'm not very close to over the phone. I think that there is like a much flatter curve as it relates to text or phone calls where you are more likely to engage on the phone with someone you're less familiar with. And maybe this is just me, maybe I'm crazy, but I think the data like that you guys are seeing and we're seeing bears it out, which is like the phone call works. It's an opportunity to qualify for intent. You can pretend that you're interested in a job over text. You can't pretend that you're interested in a job over the phone quite as easily.
No, and it also just a texting conversation, I think when it's that kind of like basic back and forth doesn't stick in your brain the same way because you're doing other things, you're multitasking.
Yep.
When you're on the phone, like you're actually having a conversation, I just think it registers in your brain differently.
Yep.
But to your point about spam calling, that was one of the first things that we really looked at data-wise was like, do they pick up the phone? And we have found when we call caregivers with our AI, over 30% of them answer and engage with the AI. So we're just reaching people who are actually willing to pick up the phone. And we're reaching a lot of those people. We're not having an issue with any kind of spam calling. The caller ID says the name of the agency, and it's just like a great experience. So I personally, I think texting is out. I think texting was the best way into the world of automation and AI in recruiting. And I think now that technology is advancing, we're moving back to kind of like I said, pre-COVID, but back to just being on the phone rather than texting.
Tell me the other, like the last thing that we talked about of the 2025 playbook that it no longer works in 2026.
Can I give another hot take?
Sure.
Scheduling interviews is out because they don't show up. And it's interesting with AI. I mean, I'll just be transparent. When Carework built our first version of it, it scheduled appointments for our recruiting team. And because we operate at scale, the thought was, we're going to go out, we're going to implement this AI. It's going to schedule all of their phone interviews. This is going to be great. But we have always tracked the percentage of time our recruiting team actually spends on the phone on a live call. And we saw when we started really moving to this AI scheduled interviews platform, the time that they spent talking to caregivers plummeted. And that is for our recruiters, that's like a performance metric. Hey, if you're working, you need to be talking to caregivers. And so our own team was speaking up like, hey, this kind of sucks because we're getting a ton of interviews scheduled, but I spend so much of my day going back to back to back for these interviews. They don't show up. I'm wasting my time. And so we found our first iteration of AI actually made us dramatically less efficient and didn't increase how many caregivers ended up getting hired. And so we moved from this scheduling interviews to say, what if we used it to use a more kind of human process where it does the phone call, but then if they're qualified, it just connects them to a human. And if a human can't answer the phone, maybe as a fallback, it'll schedule an interview. Maybe it'll be a missed call. And we found that got our efficiency, meaning our time spent actually talking to caregivers went way back up. The scheduling interviews process just doesn't work anymore. So in our recruiting, we don't do it. We use the AI to reach them, to qualify them, to connect them to our team. And if there is not a person there to answer the phone, and it does schedule an interview as a fallback, we treat that like a missed call, not like a scheduled interview. Meaning, if you are a recruiter and you're using any kind of automation that is scheduling interviews for you, and you get, okay, caregiver texted or called and they scheduled an interview 3 days from now. When you see that, your mindset should not be, great, they have a scheduled interview. Your mindset should be, they tried to get in touch with us. I need to call them right now. Don't treat it like a scheduled interview, even if it is. Treat it like a missed call that you need to return as quickly as possible because we found it's dramatically reducing wasted time for recruiters and it's increasing the time you're actually talking to caregivers. We have so much data, like this is across thousands of caregiver applicants, and we see it just doesn't work. It feels intuitively to us like it would work. Like, hey, let's have this AI or automation schedule all of our interviews. That's awesome. It doesn't really work that well in practice. And I think it doesn't scale well. And it's one of those ways that technology has just boxed us into unpleasant recruiting that that's not what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get back to where it feels like pre-COVID recruiting.
What I'm hearing you say is the like metrics and KPIs for a successful recruiting, like a successful recruiter's performance is different. So last year, and probably a couple years prior, a successful recruiter was a recruiter who had a calendar full of scheduled interviews. What I'm hearing you say, though, is the new metric to measure is conversations with candidates, which of course is what a schedule is supposed to do. But the no-show rate is so high. Also, time kills deals. That person is actively interviewing elsewhere. And if somebody else talks to them first and offers them a job first, this is like proving a negative, but like how many of those no-shows are because somebody else got to them first?
No, literally, so many. And we know that from the data has said that for years, that one of the main reasons caregivers choose a job is it's the first job that they were offered. I mean, that's been like a known fact. And I think that comes from that Activated Insights benchmarking report. Like, it's just, that is consistent. And it's so funny to me when people get judgmental about that in a way, because it's like, why wouldn't they take the first job? They don't know you yet. They don't know if they want to work for you. What they know is they have bills to pay. They need to provide for themselves and their families. So the first person that meets that need, that's where they're going to go. And as we see agencies grow, and I know home care agencies are trying to grow and they're trying to invest in recruiting, and that booked calendar looks really good. And it kind of feels good at first. It's like, oh, all this stuff is happening. But then when you have a recruiter who does that for a while, it starts to feel really demoralizing because they know they're wasting a lot of time and there's nothing that they can do about it. And like I said, when we looked at the data, it didn't actually move the needle on how many people got hired. The faster you can get on the phone with a caregiver, the better, even if it's not scheduled.
I think that's really good.
Especially if it's not scheduled, to be honest.
You and I are in a world of sales calls with home care owners. And home care owners, I'm talking directly to you right now. Y'all stink at showing up for calls. I get no-showed by home care owners so much. And it's because the job's crazy and they would like to meet with me.
Yeah, things are on fire.
Or maybe they hate me. Do you think they hate me?
I think somebody out there has created a bot to book calls with you just to no call, no show.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
It's all an elaborate ruse.
All right. Well, let's not think too much about that. That's a dark place. But anyways, like it just, when you have a no-show on your calendar, it just eats like 5 to 8 minutes of your day. And when you're like looking at the waiting room, or you're like waiting on the phone to ring, or you're making a call and you leave a voicemail and you're waiting for a call back, like you just cannot be, maybe somebody can, but you just cannot be efficient or productive during that period of time where you're wondering whether or not the scheduled appointment is going to take place.
No, and especially in recruiting, a lot of these are like 15, 20-minute phone interviews. And so you'll have an hour where it's like, okay, 15 minutes. And, we've built in processes, and I think agencies should too, where it's like, if they don't show up, you call them, you wait a certain amount of time, you text them. Like, we do all of those things. But ultimately, it doesn't work for the caregivers either, because most of them are living in just like a little bit of chaos day to day.
Sure.
They schedule that a week from now, but that day, maybe the agency they're currently working for asks them to pick up a shift. They're not available anymore. And so it's not really working for anyone on either side of the equation. And it's frustrating. I mean, for my recruiters who are working on high volume offices, they would have 8 hours in a row of scheduled interviews. And the first week we did it, we were like, every agency, we're like, wow, look at this. AI has scheduled so many interviews. And then at the end of the week, we're like, why is she only spending 40% of her time on the phone now instead of like 90? And it was because she was just sitting, she couldn't make other calls because her next scheduled interview was 10 minutes from now. And then that one went, and so it just,
you can't start another call 3 minutes before, because then that call takes 5 minutes and you're late to your next interview. It's probably a no-show.
Exactly. And so it was on smaller volume offices, on smaller agencies, it was annoying, but not awful. On large agencies who are hiring like 25, 30, 40, 50 caregivers a month, it was brutal. It was awful. And our recruiters felt it as like, I used to actually spend a lot of my time talking to caregivers, which they love. And now I'm spending my time sitting around all day. So scheduled interviews, man, thing of the past, which is crazy because that was the first iteration of like using technology to help make recruiting better. And now, like I said, we've just kind of come full circle where it's more technological, but it actually feels a little more old-fashioned.
I've felt that way about what good AI feels like for a long time, which is like there are a lot of things that we used to experience of calling and getting someone on the phone and not having to go through an IVR or wait on hold for a long time and just immediately talk to someone, that no longer is the way the world is. I remember like Discover as a credit card company, sponsor of the show, thanks Discover, is immediate, like you talk to a person when you call. And that's nice. I like that. But that's not realistic for most businesses to do anymore because the cost of labor is high and the margins are thin. Like you just can't like have that kind of wasted human capital spend, but you can replicate that kind of experience with AI in a lot of ways. And is it perfect today? Absolutely not. But other people in your market are adopting this technology and are using it to get ahead. And I was talking to somebody who kind of struck me as like a tech averse, kind of like a late adopter kind of technology person, not like head in the sand kind of person, but just like, I'll let other people try it first and then I'll follow along. And what he said to me was, AI is one of those things that feels like if you're 6 months late on, you're 3 years behind. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really well put because the pace of innovation, like we've seen a year ago, the stuff we're talking about, Rachel, was not possible. Nobody was doing
I
it.
know.
Nobody was doing it. And now literally
I know.
anyone can do it. I think that's really exciting.
When I started building the AI at Carework, I had mentors tell me, like, you are crazy. And I presented it to people like, this is like a crazy kind of side project. I'm trying to not let it distract us too much. When I started a year and a half ago, it was still just barely possible. And we were like daydreaming of like, wouldn't it be amazing if? And now a year and a half later, it's here. And thank goodness I had that crazy side project, because if we hadn't, we'd be just like totally behind now. But it's advanced so fast. It's literally hard to keep up because every single week I'm getting, and I know home care agencies are getting these too, email after email that every product I use, every service I use, there's a new AI tool, there's a new option, there's a new agent, there's a new connection, and it's like you literally can't keep up fast enough, which is cool, but it's also a little overwhelming. That is the reality of 2026, is it becomes about prioritizing. And then in the home care space, I think we're going to see huge shifts over the next year or two, not just around the technology, but around the support of vendors that actually help home care agencies implement it, because there's just too much out there and too much coming. It's like a fire hose.
Let's talk a little bit about some like real applications of AI. Because I think, you know, as we've gone down this road of building an AI scheduling agent and AI voice agents and stuff like this that are making a real difference, I think where people's brain goes immediately is what happens when the AI encounters a really high leverage situation, like an emergency or a complaint or someone who's really frustrated or having a bad time. And it's like, we've planned for that. We work with our clients on how to best, respond to those situations, how they would want us to escalate or transfer or triage or whatever the case may be. Like there's real stuff that happens in home care. The reality of home care on the scheduling front, on the phones ringing front, on the recruiting front, is that it's like your people are totally equipped to handle the emergencies and the high leverage stuff. What they are not equipped for is to handle that stuff after they've been dealing with like the dumbest possible versions of home care all day, every day. And so I was reviewing some calls that we'd had. Do you watch Parks and Rec, the TV show? Another sponsor of the show. Thank you, Parks and Rec. Mike Schur, friend of the show. Anyways, there's always like the town meetings, and I went to one of those, and it was at a Parks and Rec meeting. It felt like there was there's one that stands out to me that was like, I found a sandwich in one of your parks, and it didn't have mayonnaise on it. Why didn't it have mayonnaise? And there's a lot of calls like that in home care. That's like no mayonnaise calls. Maybe that's what we'll call it. So it's, I was listening to one, and this lady called in. She's a sweet, sweet client. And she was like, hey, I just realized I called you guys, but it's Wednesday and it's not Thursday. So there's not a caregiver coming to pick me up today. They shouldn't be, so no big deal. But also like tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Taco Bell at the Walmart instead of the laundromat. It's next to the Walmart. And so can you let my caregiver know? I heard that call. And first of all, like the first thing a scheduler is going to hear or a care coordinator is going to hear when they pick up that phone is that we have a no call, no show on our hands. And they're going to get, their cortisol is going to spike. They're going to get stressed. They're going to start, looking around their desk for sticky notes or something like that. And then when they find out that the client is actually saying, my mistake, I screwed it up, they're going to get might get frustrated and be like, what are you talking about? And not respond real good. Right. Like, why are we talking right now? Hearing the AI handle that conversation and was playing that for a client of ours. And they were like, I couldn't have done that call better. And I think that there's a lot of times where AI might not be the right tool to deal with the most stressful parts of your business that are really high leverage and are intense. Like AI isn't using the jaws of life to get somebody out of a car that's been in a car accident. But AI is doing a whole bunch of the other logistics and coordinating and orchestrating that means that your team is available to deal with the high leverage stuff. So anyways, that's what we see from our world. I would be really curious, like the kinds of stuff that you're seeing the AI handle that is like, why doesn't this sandwich have mayonnaise moments of recruiting?
I mean, we see it all the time. And I think that's kind of what I mean by like, it feels like pre-COVID. Like you just kind of pick up the phone and there's a qualified caregiver there. And it feels like they called you, and that's so nice. But before you get to that moment, there's so many dumb calls in recruiting. We will have people apply, get rejected, and then apply 3 or 4 times a week for like 6 months. And they just call again and again. Or they call because they applied to a job ad that said you have to have, a driver's license and you have to have auto insurance. And they call and it's like, do you have a driver's license? No. Or you call them and you're like, do you live in this area? No, but I'm moving there in like 6 months. And it's like, okay, great. We will call you back in 6 months. But like today, that was a bad use of my time. The other dumbest thing is the phone tag. The number of times a caregiver texts us and is like, I'm available at 10 a.m. And then we call at 10 a.m. and then they're not there. And then they call back at 10:30, but then our recruiter's on another interview. And then we call them back. And then they call us back. And then we call them back. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it's so dumb. I mean, it truly is so dumb. But the dumbest calls we get are the people, the caregivers, and I love them. I love caregivers. I love them so much. And some of them call us while they are either using the bathroom or ordering fast food.
Different times. We won't dig too deep into the bathroom one because that's it's not going to be good podcasting content. But like, so they're like we're talking like they're in the drive-through,
and in the drive-through, and they call us, and then hey, I'm calling. Yeah, can I get a quarter pounder? Okay, so sorry, like, what do you guys pay? Oh, and by the way, can I get a Diet Coke? And sometimes they'll do that for like 5 minutes, and then they'll hang up because they're trying to get their food. I just looked at a call the other day. I was looking through like any situations where a human has hung up on the AI because we always review that. Like, is there anything going wrong? Whatever. And it was somebody who was in the drive-through actively ordering and then talking to the other person in the car with them to figure out what they called us, David. This was not like we called them and reached them at a bad time. That person picked up the phone and called about the job that they wanted and proceeded to keep setting the phone down while they ordered their food and then eventually hung up. And that's the kind of stuff that our recruiters just don't need to spend their time on. We followed up with a text and it's like, we'll catch you at a better time kind of thing. But that's the kind of calls that if AI can handle all of that just absolutely dumb stuff, that's why it starts to feel more like old-fashioned recruiting where you're like, oh, it's so nice. Everyone that I talk to is like qualified and they're interested and they're ready. And it's because AI is being the barrier of like, let me just take all these calls that are really, really stupid.
It's like the I Love Lucy conveyor belt of chocolates. You start and you're like, oh, this is pretty easy. Like you just talk to caregivers and then they like continue to ratchet the speed up because you've got to do this at scale. You've got to do volume. Yeah. And some of the volume of the stuff we have to do is talking to a caregiver who's in the drive-through. And what are you going to do as a recruiter? You're going to hang up on them? Like,
yeah, you just sit there and you're like, okay, I'm here.
Yep.
I mean, I had one of those calls when I was a brand new baby home care recruiter. And I remember like she was like setting the phone down and be like, can I get some ketchup? Okay, anyways. And she talked to her friend like, no, I said I wanted ketchup. I wanted ketchup. And I'm just sitting there like, you're sitting at your desk and like you said, you can't hang up. You're just like, what am I doing here? Like, why did you call me?
And I think one of the biggest risks, and this is like existential risk to most home care agencies I talk to, is they have recruiters, they have schedulers, they have people in their office that like, they ought to buy a life insurance policy on, right? There's this idea of like a key person life insurance policy.
Yeah.
Used to be called a key man. We're moving forward. Can be ladies too. They're so integral to the business because if they got hit by a bus, like it would be so difficult to replace what they know and what they can do many times just because of the nature of the work and how, the dynamics have changed between applicants and, the people who have the jobs to offer and et cetera, is like, those people are in roles and the job design is such that they're kind of like slowly dying and they burn out. Yeah. Part of why, and I love that you guys are doing the staff recruiting piece because it's so important to get those hires right. Part of the reason that business is booming for y'all is because the burnout is so real in this business.
Yeah. Well, and what's sad about it too is the people who burn out are the people that actually care about doing a good job.
Right.
It's like when you have a recruiter or a scheduler and they are having to just repeatedly do dumb stuff that wastes their time, that's mindless, that's the people who actually care want to be having the more high-level, engaging, connecting conversations. They don't want to be playing phone tag for 4 hours a day. They don't want to be picking up the calls of like, hey, I need absolutely nothing from you, but I just thought I would tell. Like, that is what wears on them because they have this sense that they have this really big job that they're struggling to deliver. And it's the lack of autonomy that they have to sit there and do this repetitive work that doesn't yield results.
Yeah.
And so the people that care burn out. The people who don't care and just want to clock in and collect a little paycheck and do what they want to do, they don't care. They'll sit there and take dumb calls all day because they're just trying to pass the time. And so you end up with this situation where the staff members that stay the longest are the ones that don't really care about performing well. And the people who care get burnout the fastest. And like, that's the people that we're trying to help, is let them do more stuff that actually matters and feels rewarding and less stuff that's like, just check this task off 10,000 times a day.
Could not agree more. Walk me through 2025 hiring process, what that looks like and felt like, and then how things are different in 2026. And I think people will hear some stuff in the 2026 playbook that's like, oh, that's not how it feels for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2025 was a lot of free ads still. We were really pushing free ad strategy to our clients and low cost ads. And now the job ad, just to start with, is a much more advanced piece of strategy and is more expensive. And so what we're seeing is we have to be sponsoring ads. And for us, it's convincing our clients like, hey, things have changed. We have to be sponsoring ads. We have to be on top of this. So there's a lot more ad strategy going into it. And then once a caregiver applies, it used to be like, we'll give them a call. They may or may not pick up the phone. We'll send a text. We may call again. We'll text again. They may or may not get back to us. And there was so much phone tag. They called us in the middle of the night. We called them back at 9 the next morning. They called us back at 7 p.m. Because guess what? Caregivers work crazy shifts.
Yeah.
So a lot of those recruiting calls are at weird times. And there is so much phone tag and back and forth. And a lot of times our recruiters would send screenshots of someone that they had called 15 or 20 times, finally got on the phone and they're like, do you have a driver's license? No. And they're like, I have called this person, so many times before I finally got them on the phone. They're not even qualified. So that's what they were doing. And then we would go ahead and do the full kind of human phone interview and get them scheduled for orientation, typically for our clients. 2026, we're doing more advanced ad strategy. We're automating the outbound calls with AI. And so the AI is doing all of that phone tag. It's calling the caregiver multiple times. The caregiver, whenever they call back, can reach the AI. It's 24/7. So if they call back in the middle of the night after a shift, they're going to reach the AI. They're going to go through that qualification process. From that point, it can schedule an interview with them, with our team. But like I said, we treat it like a missed call and we get the caregiver back on the phone immediately. If it's during the day, it just transfers the qualified caregiver to our recruiting line. And we literally, it's like a recruiter's dream. You're just sitting there doing your job and the phone rings and you pick it up and it's like, oh, hey, here's a qualified caregiver. Let me do the interview with them right now and then get them scheduled for orientation. And so it truly, I don't want to oversell it, but I think it does feel like pre-COVID recruiting because you're just going about your day and it feels like the qualified caregivers are coming to you. They're calling. That's what it feels like because the AI is doing all that phone tag and your phone just rings when a qualified caregiver is ready. And then we're able to get caregivers through much faster. So interestingly, we thought the biggest increase was going to be efficiency for our team, and it has increased efficiency. But the biggest change has been how fast caregivers are getting hired and how many of them are getting hired. We are seeing like thousands of caregiver applicants a month. As we've made these changes, we have seen the percentage of applicants that get hired go up and up and up a little bit steady every single month. So we're actually getting the engaged qualified caregivers through the process faster. It's been really exciting. And it feels nice. Again, for the recruiters, it's like, we're like, hey, when the phone rings, pick it up. Somebody's on there and we already know that they have their driver's license and they have auto insurance. And now it's ready for like the real meat of the conversation where you get to know them.
Neither of us are salesy people, Rachel. And we've ended up talking a lot about our stuff because the solutions that we've built like really open the door to like what's possible in home care. Yeah. If anybody's listening to this and you're not leveraging AI in your recruiting operations, in your scheduling operations, like people are doing it. And people are doing it in ways that are like significantly improving the outcomes that they're seeing and getting rid of some of the most like what's since COVID has been some of the most frustrating parts of scheduling of recruiting.
Yes.
If you're hearing this and you're like, I'd love to do some pre-COVID recruiting, actually. Rachel, how can people get in touch? How can people learn more about what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll just preface this to say, I've never been like a salesy person. I am so freaking excited because we've been in the trenches of recruiting. And all of us together, like if you are a recruiter out there listening or you're an agency, I'm standing here with you feeling like we're all, oh my gosh, life just got so much better for all of us. It's just such an exciting time to see it all come to fruition. It truly feels like a recruiter's dream come true, which has been so fun. But if people want to learn more, they can go to careworkus.com, or you can email me at rachel@careworkus.com. If you want to learn about Carework, we definitely can. If you just want to spitball about AI or about recruiting, I love to do that, as you can tell. Very fun. And I'm very much into the whole DIY, AI, vibe coding, like all that stuff. So if you're somebody out there who's trying to build something, I would love to just chit chat with you as well.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, David.
On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.